From the great halls of their house, there are assembled three who hope to one day be the world's greatest driving heroes. Created from the cosmic legends of the universe comes our team captain, the Vision Bill Fisher. There's soon to be Wonder Woman, Vicki Fisher, our Captain Marvel, Head Flight trainee, Jennifer Scripchuk, and our Batman, master of tools, gadgets, and all things mechanical, our mild-mannered soon-to-be billionaire, Alan Danvers. Their mission? To fight injustice, share what is right and wrong, to get you out of your house and come out racing with them, and serve all mankind. They are the Garage Heroes and Training Team.
Captain's Log Supplemental.
So, Miss Vicki.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember when we were watching those WRL events and some of those Grid Life events where you used to see the in-car video and it had like the cameras seeing front and back, but it also could see all the telemetry and everything that was going on?
Mm-hmm.
You know, most of the ones that we liked were taken by the Sentinel system. Remember James came on our podcast earlier?
Right.
You know, we have no excuse since he lent us one for trial and demonstration purposes. We should actually probably put that in one of our cars. Maybe two.
I really think we should.
I think we should.
I know.
Because then we'd look like the immature endurance racing team that we are. Oh, wait, I mispronounced that, didn't I? Sorry, my bad. We could
So what does
have,
the Sentinel system do?
we could have 3 cameras with picture-in-picture. We could have, if we ever get the AIM system to work, open invitation to anybody from AIM to come on and give us a little bit of love. We need some help. And then we could have all our telemetry on there. And then we can have it streamed live into the paddock or around the world to our millions of fans. We're apparently very popular in Kenya right now. Don't know why, but that's fine. And it can integrate all the available race statistics from like Race Hero and everything. So we could actually see how we're doing on video. We wouldn't even have to carry around our phone anymore. Live.
I love it.
Dominating with Dawson.
When I think domination, I think Ben Dawson.
Right. Oh, yeah. Me. Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, me. We have a partner in crime, Miss Vicki.
Hello,
Oh.
how are you guys? Good to see everybody again. Of course, I see hubby every day.
So you see this guy a lot.
I do.
I was going to say, she's exaggerating this
I've been seeing
greatly.
him a whole lot.
That's right. There's lots of me to go around.
Yes,
Nice.
not so much.
Nice.
Not so much now.
Anyway, great.
Anyway, we're digressing and we haven't even started. So
All right.
that's a new record for us. So I have an idea. Something I was
Okay.
thinking about that we've never talked about.
Okay.
The difference between building a car and repairing a car
Mhm.
and developing or progressing a car. We've done the first
Okay.
one. I don't think we've ever done the second one. So what's the difference between just building a car or repairing a car and what's called developing a car or progressing a car? Or because I've heard them stay in the paddock. I know what they mean, but just in case somebody else doesn't.
Right. Well, I mean, all the fabrication and putting the car together, that's what we're saying is one phase, right?
Mhm.
Getting the car ready to go to the track is one phase.
Exactly.
But then again, I think if you've done a fairly good job and the car is mechanically sound and ready to roll, then the development and tuning phase happens once you start turning laps at the track. Would you agree with that?
I would. I'm not sure Miss Vicki got it from the look on her face. Did that make any sense to you?
No, it did not.
Okay.
Not one bit.
All right.
So at your place, Vicki, you're the person who's largely in charge at the hangar there of the first phase. Which
Yes.
say them both for us again. Will you be able just to hear
Building or
I'm a parts replacer right now.
sometimes fixing, and the difference between
Building,
that and developing or progressing your car.
Got it. So you're talking about building and maintenance between races is one thing.
Yes.
Getting the car getting the car up on its feet and then keeping it alive between races is
Right.
one thing.
Mhm.
And then developing and progressing how well the car works is something, the other side of the equation.
Yes.
So Vicki, you're mainly involved in the first portion, which is getting the cars together. As you just said, you're a parts replacer. So that's you over there. The other side of the thing is, once the car is at the track, how do we make it more livable for all of our drivers? How do we make it faster? How do we, you know what I mean? How do we make it stay more reliable? And sometimes the two can bleed over. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we can talk about when the two things might bleed over. When you discover something at the track that might be a weakness that you need to go back and address and correct. In the same place you're doing all your maintenance and building, sometimes your tuning might carry over back into the shop where you're fixing something that you've learned or figured out at the track.
Is that anywhere clearer now or no?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So I guess the one phrase that I hear often is that a race car is never done.
Right. Well, you always want it to get faster.
Yes.
You always want it to be more competitive. And even if you just won your championship, you know that there's going to be somebody coming out, figure something out over the winter time or whatever. They figure out what you figured out. Somebody's always going to be coming for you. So you can't ever just kind of sit back and rest. If you're in a competitive series, like, there are some club racing classes that end up, a big racing weekend. We still have like 3 people in the, I don't want to call any classes out, but like some of the GT classes in our region in NASA, there may be only a couple, 3 people in it, but then you look at spec E30 or spec Miata, and there's 20, 30 cars. So as long as, I guess the caveat is, you got to always stay on it if you're running in a competitive, well subscribed field.
So I guess the thing that we need to clarify, I'm pretty sure that most of our listeners are going to know what repairing or replacing parts is, but
right.
What is involved with developing or progressing a race car and trying to improve it? It's not just add a turbo, right?
That's right. I mean, depending on what is adjustable and tunable on your car, if you have camber
the
plates,
series too.
And what's legal
limits.
what's legal within the rule set where you're competing. For example, you might be allowed to have camber plates, but you're not allowed to have sway bars that you can adjust from inside the car. That might be the kind of distinctions you're looking for. So you want to make sure that you understand pretty much the full range of options that are available to you even when you're conceiving of the vehicle you want to race. Kind of think of where you want to end up with it. That's really the initial phase of the development, is making a decision what you want to compete with, and then kind of build up a set of hopes for where it's going to go and what it could be, and then so you build the thing basic. You build it to the basic thing you think is going to meet the expectations of what you've set out. And then by that time you get to the track and you start working on it, you start developing it. I mean, when we want to get into the specifics of here are things you can do to develop a car.
I think so. I mean, I think the simplest one is probably tire pressure, right? That's kind of the first one I think of. And
that's something we can all do. No matter what you brought or how it's modified, you can all adjust your tire pressure. And it's a pretty basic thing, a pretty basic tool in the kit. So you're right. That's usually number one, especially if you're doing track days. You might be out there in a car that doesn't have a lot of adjustability built in from the factory. Once you've built it more out as a race car with better suspension, that sort of thing, you might end up having more adjustability than you do when you bring it out to the track as a street car for the first time.
So I guess going up a level of complexity, what do you think would be the next step in the progression of, trying to dial in your car?
Right. I mean, I think the very next thing would be, and let me just clarify. We're not really talking about modifications like getting better tires and brakes, or are we?
I don't. If you're going to be testing, I think you could be talking about stuff like that. But usually, like we run when we go on a track, we typically have our default is the Raybestos ST43s is what we like. It gives good braking and good lifespan, so we like those. But on other cars, we've had Pagets, we've had Porterfield has a brand. I think it's an acronym. I think it's like PTS or PTC or something. We've only used it once. It was fine. I would say brake fluid is not something you would consider. You just upgrade it to a racing fluid and
that's just a safety item.
Yeah,
but you just routed off a whole lot of you guys may think you're not doing a lot of development, but with all the brakes people have tried, you've been doing development on just your general knowledge of what cars like, what kind of pads, and so that's you listed a whole lot of development that I'm not sure you're giving yourself credit for right there when you started talking about all the various brands you tried, and in finding one that you found to be pretty consistent that you like now. So that's pretty well developed, would you say?
Yeah, I think so. It's not a variable to us at this point, although we are going to be doing a comparison of brake pads on the new Spec E46. So that'll be interesting. And then I guess you could also do tire brands and tire sizes would be something.
Yep. You should, a lot of times you can get faster just by throwing, wider rims on the car with fatter tires, wider tires.
Yep.
Pick up a bunch of cornering and grip just from that. But if we're talking about sort of levels of development and at the track, as far as complexity goes, tire pressure is pretty easy if you have the availability to adjust and accurately check or measure your toe in or out. If you can adjust your camber and caster, that sort of thing at the track, those are tools that you have in your tool chest, and fairly basic ones to understand that like I need to have this and that, just in general,
right?
So that those are ones that, as long as you can accurately and repeatably measure, if you have the ability to do that at the track and make changes, you may be going in there with zero negative camber in the front and you're not turning in very well, but all of a sudden you can put 3 degrees of negative camber on each side in the front, and all of a sudden you start turning it a lot better. That would be a pretty big noticeable change, and that might be something you could do at the track.
Right. So working our way up towards more complex things, I would think we'd go towards maybe alignments and sway bars and shocks and springs.
Right. So it's fairly rare. We're talking to a lot of people who are racing sort of more the budget series where adjustable shocks might not be allowed, but probably adjustable sway bars are fine. Just any sway bar you want to use. And when we talk about a sway bar that you can adjust, there are ones that you can adjust from inside the car, but they're super expensive, and almost nobody I can think of allows anybody to run them. So just write those off. And we mean adjustable sway bars, making the adjustment by moving moving to different located holes on the end of the sway bar,
or disconnecting it totally.
Or just disconnecting it. So those are things that you can do with the sway bar that you can also achieve at the track. It's not a problem to take care of that as long as you can reach everything and safely get the car up in the air on jack stands to do it. Right, jack stands all the time. Never under the car with just a jack.
Ideally, a tire.
I learned that, not the hard way, but I learned how important that is, because you know what? You don't realize how sketchy everything is until you look at it with a new eye after you've been working on stuff for a while.
Oh yeah, you think you're picking up the car in a totally balanced, safe spot. I've done that before and realized like I barely had this thing up in the air without coming down. But I always have a jack stand, even if you feel like I'm not really getting under the car. I'm just kind of peek my head in for a minute. Next thing you know, you've been under there 5 minutes. You have a Craftsman jack from old Craftsman Sears jack that just notoriously leaks down. Next thing you know, the transmission's sitting under your chest and it's too late to do anything about it. You're by yourself on a Saturday working and then dead.
It's tough to bench press a car, man.
Man, yeah.
It is a horror story if you just look at it for like that horror movie look.
Yeah. Always jack stands. You're going to be doing stuff at the track, and if you're developing your car in the track or in the garage, wherever, this is an unpaid advertisement for use a damn jack stand.
Yep. And shoving your tire underneath the car is a backup plan in case.
Yeah, you want a physical block to keep that thing from falling onto your body.
As many redundant steps as you can. Put them in there. Keep the jack there. Keep the jack stand there. Put the tires under. Have a friend who's fatter than you go under with you, whatever it takes. Yes. Perfect. Works for me. Any other relatively simple things involved with dialing in a car that you can think of that might be in the progression?
There might be some engine stuff you can do with routing air if your car is running, too hot or too cold. There might be some stuff you can do to affect the cooling performance of your car if it's not optimal. You know,
Right.
if it's too cold, if you're not running warm enough on the engine, you might not be making good power. This is some cars have variable timing. So
Mhm.
you know, like I think Porsche 944s and some Miatas, like I know NA Miatas, the generation I had, like the 94 to 97, you could adjust the cam angle sensor and advance the timing a little bit, and that gets you better acceleration. So it would be a smart move to go in with a couple of little engine tricks that you know might work for your engine, whether it's
Right.
some kind of air trick or timing trick. But yeah, see if there's a little bit of monkeying around you could possibly try at the track if the car is not doing what you want engine wise. Developing your car at the track also just is going to involve not always just optimizing your speed, but developing your reliability, right?
Mhm.
That's a huge,
for
a
sure.
huge,
Finding the
yeah.
weak spot and fixing it.
So that's a huge part of what we do.
Jeremy's on.
Hey, that's going to be great to edit. Thanks.
That's fine. It's okay. Leave it in. Jeremy, you guys. Okay. So, hi, Ben Dawson, Jeremy Hall, Ben Dawson.
Hey, Ben. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, Bill, why don't you go ahead and discuss
Try to rescue this segment.
Yes,
that you
please
just
do
blew
that.
up.
I'm so excited.
Okay, very
No.
well.
No, I'm glad he showed up because I have some questions for both of these guys. And
Okay.
he's the right person for it.
All right, very well. So we're not saying that, tire alignment, tire pressure, tire size, tire brand, what else do we cover? Sway bars, shock and spring adjustment. Those are the only knobs that you have to turn, but those are kind of the generic beginning stuff. There's lots of things you can do, replacing parts that are broken or break fragile, getting into ECUs and tuning, getting into different aspects of the car. We're not saying that's the only thing to do, but when you're looking at developing or progressing a car, these are like the generic beginning steps that you want to look at, and you want to keep track of these things, and it's involved with testing. What I wanted to get to before we ended this topic was, and Jeremy chime in as well, how do you do that when a single car is one thing, but when you're doing an endurance race, you typically have more than one driver, unless you have no friends, or one of your friends gets sick and throws up during the race, and then you're driving by yourself, or whatever. There's more involved when you have an endurance racing type environment where you have multiple people in the same car. And I think you end up, and I'm answering my own question, but I figure I'm letting you guys come in. You can't have it perfect for every one of them, of the drivers. Typically, there's going to be differences. What do you think philosophically you should be aiming towards? Does that make sense as a question? I don't know. I talk so long.
What do you think, Jeremy?
That's a tough one. I mean, kind of, not really. So every driver is different. Every car is different. Drivers have unique ways of doing things. Cars have their own unique ways of doing things. But realistically, in a team environment, a neutral setting for a car is what I like to see. Basically set it up so it's neutral and everyone can drive it, and just readapt themselves to change their driving style for the way the car is set up.
Neutral, do you mean middle, or do you mean front to back, or I just want to make sure we're clear on what neutral is.
So neutral, basically, like the brake, some people like a little bit of rear brake. Some people like a lot more rear brake. And I'm talking about everything in terms of suspension wise. Some people like a loose rear end, but a well-balanced setup, like neutrally across the board for everything. Tire pressures, if one guy likes, 32 degrees hot, one guy likes 37. Okay, let's meet in the middle at 34, and we're all going to run, the whole car, the whole setup, everyone is going to run the same tire pressures, and it just makes it easier for every single person to be able to drive that car. Does that make sense,
Right.
Ben?
Yeah, it sounds right to me. I am always the person on our team or any team who wants a car that just will oversteer as much as oversteer as I can get. It makes me happy, makes me feel fast. Nobody else wants anywhere near the amount of oversteer I want. So I have to cave to their fascist demands and not have a crazy handling car. But yeah, you have to meet in the middle. And usually I'm the wackiest one who wants the wackiest stuff. But yeah, I agree, because one factor to consider that goes along with having a car that's set up neutral, that doesn't have any weird tendencies, is it's safer for everybody to drive. When you talk about everybody having a different driving style on the team, very often, an endurance team has a different levels of driver skill and experience too. So making the car the easiest to drive while still being pretty sporty is a pretty smart play.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Miss Vicki?
I like a neutral car because it's something that I can, at least in my experiences, limited experience, that I personally don't want to hop into a car that I am not prepared to drive. I've had the experience. It is a scary experience.
What was it? Tell us about it.
Oh, we brought this up on the podcast once before, and they know.
It could be somebody's first episode. You never know.
Yes, I ended up racing in a car that had a very, very loose setup, and
sweet.
It was a very, very fast build too. No, it was a very, very fast build because they wrecked the car. A team had wrecked the car the week before, and we were renting this one, so they threw together a car within a week.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the car out of Laguna.
Yeah, out in Portland. Was
Same
it
car.
Portland?
Same car, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Regardless, this thing had the loosest build on it, and then they found out that it had oblong. I think they had
mounting
oblong
points.
Yeah, where they didn't realize how loose they were. That was scary to
Worn
drive.
out components.
It did. The bushings has some worn out bushings that were essentially oval. When he went in to go look at them, he goes, "Oh, that's
you had random camber at various points in the turn."
Yeah, it was pretty scary to drive, and it was my first time driving a front wheel drive, so I didn't have it. It was a lot to handle at Laguna Seca, which is already a lot to handle.
Yeah,
so
it was fun though.
It was fun.
So
I'm jealous that you got to drive that track, to be honest with you.
Ooh, it's
I
way
gotta
more
tell you,
fun
at the
person.
top of this corkscrew, I said the F word so many times before I just initiated that. It's compulsory.
it's the same every time. The road is in the same spot.
You just
Every
don't see
lap.
it. It just drops off like a roller coaster.
I used to never
Amazing.
connect with Laguna Seca in sims and games. And I finally had a chance to race a 6-hour jump race in 2014 over there. Had a blast. It's so much more fun in person than it is on any kind of simulation. And to me, the corkscrew was the least exciting part of it.
I agree.
Because it was just it kind of carries you from one fast part to the next set of fast. I'm just like, let's just chug. Let's get this over with so I can get back to the fast stuff. I mean,
I feel like
so many-
leading up to the corkscrew would be more fun.
It's the one
There
after.
was so many physical sensations that I was experiencing on that track.
I think it's the turn after that's the most fun for me. But so the correct answer, because you're all wrong, is
I love it when Bill tells us this.
I agree that a neutral car can inherently be the best for everybody, but I believe philosophically that you should make the car as good as you can for your least experienced driver, because the better drivers can drive the car better and lose less time than the inexperienced driver.
But what do you think an inexperienced driver is going to go, hey guys, I need more understeer in this thing? Like, what do you think they're going to want that's different than having a neutral car that gets the turn easy?
Yeah, a neutral car is really the best setup for a novice brand new driver to jump in the car, because everything is neutral. Everything is even across the board and very simple to drive. So you're using a different term, Bill.
I know I am, but I thought it was too much fun not to have all of you guys on here and say you're wrong again. So it's just every now and then I got to pull the cord and say the exact same thing, because you guys are generally right, but I just have to have fun at your expense. It's just
your newbie driver comes rolling in the pits, all freaked out, goes, I gotta have this thing. When I turn the wheels, I need them to just keep going straight. I gotta get no turn out of this thing, baby.
That's right.
I need it to plow. We gotta plow.
I want understeer, just like my street car. Anyway. All right. So progressing a car, is the car ever done? Is the car ever finished?
Nope.
Nope. So if you ever have somebody trying to sell you a car saying, the car is dialed in, you don't have to do anything, don't believe them. If they say the car is ready to race, they could be true. But if they say that the car, you just leave it as is, this is what you do and you're done, you're never done. So,
especially if you have a team that is experienced and has experienced drivers, and you all are, have some sort of idea of car setup. You don't just ever leave it. You're going to mess with it a little bit. Yeah. You're going to go basically from the teams with new drivers. You're going to be here, the teams with experienced drivers that have been racing with each other for a long time. So now this neutral setup for this team has just become the neutral setup up here for the experienced team.
Right. Plus, hopefully we're all still progressing as drivers, and we're all hopefully getting better. The weather's different. The track is different. The car is never done. There's no, this is what you do. 3 degrees front, 2.5 back, 16th total toe. It's never, that's a good place to start, but that's never where you end up. And you're going to have different people who prefer different things. And that's fine.
And part of that development and tuning and getting your car ready is figuring out what it likes in different conditions and building that toolbox of knowledge for that car. So, all the things you just listed as big variables, you're not just developing a car to be great in the dry in 75-degree weather. You're trying to figure all that stuff out. You learn it at the races, and hopefully you learn it, have the opportunity to test and learn more there too. It's hard. It's hard developing a car only at the races, but people do it.
Yep. And, I'm hoping that this one will come out pretty close to our episode on how to test a car with Scott. So hopefully this one will be either that same week or the week after, and we'll get into more details. But I mean, it just, cool. If you take it simple and look at a course like, I always think of Lime Rock as the typical car course where there's only one left-hand turn. So if you were to dial something in for Lime Rock specifically, it wouldn't be as good if you have a lot of hard left-hand turns at another track.
Right. Your Lime Rock setup's not going to take you around Laguna Seca that good.
No, not so much. Although I'd like to try. But anyway, let's drive them all and see if we can find the setting that works for everybody. That sounds like a plan. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Miss Vicki. You can't control yourself. I know.
He wasn't supposed to be on, then he just popped on. That just made me think.
have this thing called a phone.
I know. I know.
Magical.
So why don't you officially introduce Ben and Jeremy?
You're not in the middle of an episode? Okay, very well.
It's just, it's that ADD. I have my moments. It just comes out.
I've already cyber stalked this guy, and I feel like he's somehow associated with Matco Tools, or has been in the past. Did I find the right Instagram? Wait, let me see that shirt.
That's true.
Let me see that shirt. Pull that shirt up a little bit. Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I found him already.
Unfortunately, I don't have a big social media presence. I've never been too good at keeping up with it, but I'm working on it. I'm going to learn from Bill. I'm working on it.
We're always in training, baby. So we met Jeremy at our last race in Pittsburgh and got along so well that Jeremy's decided to come along and play with us.
Awesome. That's great. Had you been doing endurance stuff before?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I've talked to them a few times at a couple different races here and there, but just kind of in passing, just hey, how are you? As I'm running through the pits to fix our Volkswagen that broke again for the millionth time.
Vicky probably threw a shirt at him or something, but you know.
Yeah. But Jeremy bought our race truck.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's awesome.
Yep. So we're gonna play with that. We're in between cars right now, so we're gonna play with that.
And to further bond the two of you, Jeremy's in the midst of building a Spec E46 car as well.
That's why you said Spec E46 before?
Mm-hmm.
Bill?
He's got one. I've got one. You've working on
are you
one.
getting one too? I just didn't know.
Mine's not really spec. Mine is not. No. It's the cage is crazy. I've added a lot of weight to it with the cage, but the suspension is not spec.
Ours
My headers are
technically
not
isn't
spec.